Hello, everybody. So we completed the overview, which showed you all of the steps to creating a solid, guaranteed, and viable curriculum. That video is about 28 minutes long. This one's going to be shorter. This is probably one of the more simple steps in the process. It's step one, selecting your essential hard standards that lead to classroom best practice. And so this is simply going to go through the where, what, why, how, very briefly in terms of selecting the standards. I imagine that the good majority of our staff members already have these, but there's a constant need each year to review the standards that are on the list, how they're worded, and excuse me, if you would like to keep those standards or focus elsewhere based upon the data that you experienced the year before. So where do we start this journey to being able to get to a GVC? And so I'm going to call you back to one of the overview slides to having a solid, successful school that gets results. Not only do you have to have those 5 pieces, you really need to focus on the centerpiece initially, which is across a lot of experts. And that's, again, having a curriculum that's guaranteed and viable. And the start to that whole process for where we start is essential standards. You have to have standards. Standards are not bad things. We have standards for the restaurants that we eat in. We have standards for the cars that we drive. We have standards for the house that we live in. We have standards for our spouses. Whatever it may be, standards are not bad. And you have to have a standard or a goal or a target or something to look forward to. Otherwise, we can be lost, and we're not helping our colleagues out if we're kind of wandering through our curriculum. So if you remember, the map looks like this, and we are going to be focusing again on step one, essential hard standards. What do I need to know and be able to do by the end of the year or the course? So what are essential hard standards? No matter what, and this is one of the things that we need to focus on. I missed a quote there in semantics, but no matter what semantics you use, there are common findings in successful schools. According to Marzano, successful schools require essential outcomes. According to Hattie, every school has to have a systematic way of articulating very specific and appropriate challenging goals. DeFore really focuses on essential skills. Lizotte, academic goals. Ainsworth, power standards. Danielson, instructional outcomes. I know we tend to get lost on what are we doing? I thought we were doing power standards. We were doing essential hard doesn't matter. It's the set of standards usually directed by the state that is our menu to choose from, and we have to narrow that to a viable list. So please do not get caught up on the semantics of this. Essential hard standards tell you the things you need to know and the skills you need to demonstrate by the end of the year to be successful in the next grade or grade level. They do require a lot of hard work, and this is the key. They take time, practice, mistakes, and effective feedback to master. And a lot of times we're giving kids time to do a little bit of the work, but they're not allowed to really have a lot of time on screwing things up and getting the feedback portion. They're what teachers should be spending the majority of instructional time teaching. They are the only thing that we largely should be assessing as teachers. While we teach all of the standards, in terms of coverage, we should not be spending much time assessing anything other than the essential standards. The essential standards are what you will have data-driven discussions about. You shouldn't be having data-driven discussions about every standard under the sun because you shouldn't be assessing every standard under the sun. It's too much. And they're also what we will be intervening on, whether we're pushing kids forward in terms of enrichment or whether we're remediating them. And there is simply just not enough time in the day to do that with all standards, thus the need to narrow. So that's going to be the bridge to why. Why do we have to have these essential standards? And why does the grade below me and the grade above me, why does everybody need to know what we're doing in the system? Here's one take at it. If you listen to something that Marzano published, and this was back in 2003, and quite honestly, not a lot has changed. The content and skills that you're expected to teach to help students to become proficient in have to be adequately addressed. That takes time to directly instruct them and to give them chances to make attempts, make mistakes, and garner feedback both from you and their peers. And it's got to be time that you have and have available to that. And in an average K-12 system, kindergarten through 12th grade, if you look at all the hours and all the benchmarks and everything needed, if you were to cover everything equitably, and that's just coverage, not going deep necessarily, it would take you 22 years. And obviously, we're talking about 5-year-olds through 18-year-olds. So you can do the math. That's not 22 years that we have in order to do this, thus the need to narrow. Another reason that we need essential HEART standards is that all students don't learn in the same way. Some students lack the academic behaviors, you all know that, or have a home life that's counterproductive to academic success. You know that as well. Some students lack prior skills and knowledge, which is a big caveat. And then while I am confident that every single one of us here in this school district, along with most others, teachers are working their tails off on behalf of their students and utilizing their best strategies that they have, but there is not a single teacher that has all the skills, all the knowledge, and all the time necessary to meet the needs of all of their students. With all of the standards, it's just not possible. So we have to collectively collaborate to work towards trying to get our kids everything that they need with regard to the narrowed list of essentials. Another way to think of it, since we're going with this heart theme, that is that you need to target heart rate of 160. Not 160 beats per minute, but 160 class sessions per year, because that's what you have. In order to get proficient students in those skill sets that you've defined as essential, the time that you typically have in a school year in the United States is about 160 days. Yeah, we all throw out 180. Yes, the state says mandated 174, but when you pull out assemblies and some of those other things, you're down to 160. And depending on whether you have 160 50-minute sessions or 40-minute sessions or 80-minute sessions, again, you can do the math when you have those essential skills. And once you get to step 3 and you're breaking down how long each learning intention from that essential standard is going to take, you're going to really easily see that if you're going to give them time to really practice, dive deep, and get feedback as they're working through and towards proficiency, this 160-day target heart rate is going to come at you very quickly. We mentioned this in the overview that all the rest of the standards, yes, we're not saying don't teach them. We're not saying don't cover them. We're just saying don't spend all the time and energy on the arm and leg standards, the supporting standards, because kids will survive the next grade level, the next subsequent course without them. It's nice if they have them, so yes, absolutely cover them, but not nearly to the same degree that you're focusing your assessment energies, your direct instruction energies, your differentiation energies that you'll be focusing on with regard to essential. So again, essential, those are the ones you're working towards proficiency or mastery, versus coverage, arm and leg standards, which are supporting, that you're merely kind of talking about and addressing in the larger context. So last piece, how do we do that? How do we really try to do the best we can to determine what's essential? And you're only responsible for what you're responsible for in our district. You can't control what happens at Wood River up in Chicago or across the state of California. We don't have control of that. You have control of what happens in this district. And so what's important is that you decide and take control over what you have control over. And so there's one really good way to do this, and that's to consider this model in which we determine priority or essential HEART standards by asking ourselves 4 questions. Does the standard prepare our students for the next level of learning in terms of readiness? Is it a critical focus on external assessments like SAT, ACT, IAR, or whatever MAP, whatever it may be? Does the standard target concepts and skills that last over time? So is what you're teaching them in the particular set of skills or content something that has some endurance that's important, not just in your grade level or your course, but elsewhere. And then leverage. Does the standard have some crossover application between other subjects? So I'm teaching science, and we're talking about the importance of annotating our science text. Well, obviously, if my skill is annotation, and that's in the standard to read closely, then they annotate in ELA, they annotate in social studies. So obviously, annotation would be something that meets all 4 of the criteria, which makes it a likely candidate to be an essential Hart standard as compared to a comma in something in series. That would be a supporting standard that you'd want to talk about, but might not necessarily apply in social studies or math or something like that. So it's really a 3-step process, and we're all at various stages in this. It is. On your own, individually, step 1, look at all the available and required standards for your course or grade level. Now, you may be a singleton teacher. You may be the only teacher for the content or the grade level that you have, and so there's not going to be a PLC part of this because you're it. But if you are in a PLC, you're going to review and try to go through those 4 questions for those standards and identify your essentials. And then once you've finished listing those standards that you consider essential, Hart standards using those 4 questions, then you meet with your PLC, and collectively you all come to the table with your own interpretation, and you come to consensus on what you think 3rd grade's core standards are going to be, or science biology teachers' core essential standards are going to be. And I will say that this is typical. Time investment to get this done, depending on where you're at in the process, depending on the number of teachers you have, depending on the grade level, etc. I've seen anywhere from 4 to 8 actual clock hours. That means time on the clock making these selections. Some of you are done, and you don't need to do anything. You've already got them. They're on your syllabus. You're not changing anything. We're cool. You're done with this step, and you probably could have just not listened to this video, but too late for that now. But if you were starting from scratch in this process, or you were wanting to do a complete curriculum review, you can count on 4 to 8 hours. And that's, of course, going to be broken up. You may do 2 at this SIP day. You may do all of the 4 individual hours, over the course of a couple of weeks on your own, and then come back and have a series of 3 1-hour meetings or something along those lines. But you do it till you get it done. But 4 to 8 is typical. And then the typical result for most courses over the course of a year is around 8 to 15 essential Hart standards, because when you look at learning progressions on each one of these standards, if they truly are essential, they're going to take you a while. And we are seeing some standards that are taking folks, if they really want to dive deep and do all the practice and feedback that they need to get kids proficient. We're seeing individual standards sometimes taking 20 days of lessons. That's a big chunk out of your 160, and you've only got 1 standard. So you can see how this is going to scale out. So what you're going to have with this video is this form. Feel free to use it where you put the course name at the top, and you simply, this is your agreed upon list of, there's room for 15. You can make as many copies as you want. You can extend the rows on the digital document. Each building admin is tucking these forms into their a shared drive for you. They'll communicate where that's at. But other than that, this is the way we're going. Some of you already have this in Course Mason. Feel free to continue to use that. The ultimate goal, though, is that you are able to articulate both on your syllabus, your report card, when asked, when demonstrating it with students, what those essentials are, and that everybody, all stakeholders know that, whether it be parents, students, teachers, admin, board members, whoever, you'd be able to tell them what your essentials are for each individual course that we have in our district. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Take care.